난 주변에 제일미식이 돌려 텔럽제로 시간 나와버리나 나도 내지 그 생제 탐지에 대화돼 버려 정말 미디어 버려 지상하고이 대화들이야 내가 대화는 이 대화지 말하는 거 대화 타도 탈비 대화선 근데 사이 타가 탐지기는 거 대화지 shasan yuna kin ya oji kusun soba ji tu jeba ina ana ma ji tu es esa dine da na yuna kin ya ku reje da yuna kin ya da kan tu da yuna ani ya an ji sun jama ya ana ma ji sanje tamje ji sun jama da won ji ba be du shi san ba je ani ji sun jama da kya su to es kya su to ina an ji sun jama ye ana chota tu mo lu da ni ko tin ne na mi reje and Bendigo that the cousin Nadi to the cousin realized I said it and similar time to Mara that similar to my daily to be sent to Chanel and the Kalen Damjasia and Jason to be cool to she goes the names are and they watch and be very funny and Jason to Kalen Damjana and Jedini similar Mongolia and to Waters the names are made currently and Tablan Tutadi ma, sick to Dujima, shaking his, and also and that it should to get in cabbage and Tobliore, and then and currently and share the Gavata to you to buy a Yore, the names are currently Shabbat and currently Yahoo Yanji and Jesus Casore, Yamachi or yes, that the landing would to show it you got an issue or what.
Good afternoon. This morning, we started to look at our text, which is advice from Lama Tsongkhapa to each of us about how to take the very essence of this human life. So Lama Tsongkhapa started by drawing our attention to the fact that all sentient beings, ourselves and all beings, want to experience only happiness, and we don't want to experience any problem or difficulty at all. And amongst all the varying types of happiness, there are both those which are temporary happinesses, in other words, happinesses which are finite, they come to an end. And this is what we hope to experience in this life and in our future lives. These are the temporary happinesses. But the real happiness we long for is happiness that is lasting and stable, that never fluctuates or wanes. This is the happiness of liberation and enlightenment. And all forms of happiness come about independence on causes that we ourselves need to accumulate. Hence, we must strive to accumulate a virtuous mind, the causes of happiness. And how to do so? Then Lama Tsongkhapa encouraged us to turn towards Tada and take refuge in Tada, because Tada has promised to aid all suffering sentient beings, every single one, and no matter what life form they are in or what suffering experiences are befalling them. Tara has promised to help all, and how so? By guiding them to cultivate the causes of happiness on their own continuum. So this is the promise she made and the promise she is fulfilling. So turning to Tada for refuge, then Lama Tsongkhapa urges us, you who have attained this remarkable human rebirth with so much potential, use it well, and use it well by listening sincerely and intently to this personal advice that I am giving directly to you. So that in brief is what we looked at this morning. And now we come to the main body of this teaching, which is about how to train our mind. So this word either practice or training refers to training our mind. So we come to the fourth verse. if you have not repeatedly trained in the reflection that death is certain to come and that it will definitely come swiftly, even when virtuous thoughts occasionally arise, they will amount to nothing more than striving for this life's pleasures. The first line of this verse in the Tibetan is our second line, is certain to come and it will definitely come swiftly. This is, of course, referring to death. Our death is certain to come and our lifespan is not long. It will come quickly. Our lifespan will soon be exhausted. That we will all die. This is nothing startling, nothing particularly controversial. This is something everyone knows and accepts. But it's nevertheless something we need to come to really recognize. When we think back over the annals of time, how many famous people have all come and have all died. Powerful people all have died. And this isn't just the case for humans, it's a case for all life forms. And in fact, many species have gone completely extinct. So we know about this from the various fields of science who have studied, or biologists who have studied forms of life that no longer exist. Everything that is born will die. And from the moment of our birth, the countdown to the end of this life begins. Every day that passes is one day less we'll have in this life. Every month we are a month closer to our death. Every birthday is 1 year closer to our death. This is the reality of our situation. It is certain that we'll die, and our death draws ever nearer. It is certain that we will all die, and that the time of our death is swiftly approaching. The time from when we will be no more is swiftly approaching. This is greatly important to think about, and if one doesn't think about this well, one will actually lose out. It's important to reflect on this.
Just not in it, some of my child, younger regulars, she will some of my give some ambiguous, give some ambiguous. Here I am, and give some gigmares, and give out to be some of the future with your gigmares, and give out to be a Joseph, just as you ever in there, say did them. Say Digi Punzo Rulen, say did them Digi together, say did them Tamian or there's some form of Kewachima that about Tanjim go to give out to be some Kotumares, she was some Matavina. Just that in it, give you some vacation, younger she had some Matavina, and give you some Kewachima that about Tanjim to be Yamenji, Kawadi to Tumar, give you some Gimares. Casey Kawat is Joseph Jebene. Tsedi punzo rulen zam se tsedi ji tamyan da di ju ju ye di sam gi ma do ke wa chu chu ma do cha lo ma le se da la ni wo su mo la.
So therefore, recognizing that death is certain to come and that it will definitely come swiftly, the verse continues, we must therefore train repeatedly in reflecting on death. So this is now the first two lines. If you have not repeatedly trained in the reflection that death is certain to come and that it will definitely come. So if we have not reflected well on this, we will experience a great loss. And the great loss then is presented in the next two lines. Even when virtuous thoughts occasionally arise, they will amount to nothing more than striving for this life's pleasures. Because whilst we all accept we will die, this is not controversial. When we die, our continuum does not cease. It's not followed by nothingness. Rather, we will definitely take rebirth again. And where we will take rebirth is entirely dependent on the karma we have accumulated. It is for that reason that we need to utilize this life very well, accumulating causes that will lead to excellent rebirths and excellent conditions in our future lives. So if we do not utilize what remains, if we do not think well about death, then what is presented in the third and fourth line will come about. That even when virtuous thoughts occasionally arise, they will amount to nothing more than striving for this life's pleasures. So not being ever aware of our pending death and that our lifespan is shortening day by day, we will continue to have our mind consumed by achieving frivolous pleasures and overcoming problems that in reality have no real significance. And in this way, this opportunity that this life presents will be wasted. It will not be taken up.
Jizada Kyo to be Duzuti, the Kin, Mashi Paya, Duzuti, she san Chima lesser than Chima to be Duzuti Marava. Jizada Mashi Vinian, she would die, and Nigishina, Kyo Mashi Para, the Duzuki, and Kyo to miss and begin some much. She will get some time and she would Getisha, never Yomata, some Tavaina. That she didn't never check him out. She's like, what you might do. She's like, what you might do. Yahuala, Geshe to board it, give out to board it, and some for you. Then Suzuki, Gavadi, Yamadi Yahuas, just like Gaval Bezuchi to Bes, Bezuya, deep Bezuya to Wayne, Gavaya Yahosa, then she will there, no, to give. 全看的进趴，全看下三万几，不要拿心毛多，那你干嘛说嘛？可是西边的也要去嘛，你来也好去通过我是，现在这里咱们这个买新年的呀，解决主要的，这边是解决不了是的，那你得说我的。
So right now, whilst we have this opportunity of this remarkable human rebirth to accumulate virtue, we must do so. We must not waste this opportunity, because now, whilst we have some energy and we have this remarkable life, we can accumulate virtue which will ensure that our future rebirths go well. When that moment comes, when this life ends, and in the next breath our next rebirth begins, then it is too late to create good causes for that next life, because we have already arrived there. Now, in whatever duration of time we have left, we need to utilize this well. This body that we have, we should relate to as just being a guest house that stores our consciousness. And this is a guest house from which we will definitely have to leave. And when the time of our eviction from this guest house comes, then our opportunity to accumulate merit is over. So now, whilst we have this chance, we must apply ourselves with vigor and with consistency to accumulate merit so that our future rebirth goes well, just like this one has. What's being described here really is how our situation is. It's not at all controversial. We need to recognize it though, so that we prepare. So if you make up a situation in your mind that perhaps where you're told by someone, perhaps your employer, that you have to go on a business trip, but it's unsure when, but whenever the right time comes, then you have to be ready to leave. Having that pre-warning, now you'll prepare, because you'll know that you're going on this trip, so you need to get certain things ready, so that when the time comes, you can leave. And then you prepare well, investigate what it is that you need, permissions you need to travel, and how what you need to pack, and so forth. And then prepared well, whenever the time comes to leave, you can leave in a relaxed state, knowing that the trip will be a success. But if on the other hand, one is told that you need to prepare because you have a trip coming up, but you don't know when, and you say, I don't know when, not important, I have other things that I need to do right now, and then you don't prepare, you still will need to go. And then when the time comes when you are instructed, when you are made to leave, then you'll get upset. Then you'll get upset because now you haven't prepared well, you don't know what lies before you, and you know it will not go nearly as well as if you had prepared properly. So this is our situation, and this we need to recognize for ourselves. And now, from now, is the time we need to prepare, because if not now, when will we do so? even when you're going out just say for the evening. So if you know that your friends will pop by later and then you'll be going out for the night, you'll make sure you're prepared. You'll make sure you got something dressed, that you washed and you're looking presentable, and then you're not entirely sure when your friends will come, but whenever it is that they do come to pick you up, you're ready to go. Whereas if you think to yourself, I don't know what time they're going to come, I'll sort myself out later, that opportunity will be lost. They'll turn up, you're not ready, they're wanting to go, and now you're a mess. So this is not how we live our lives. So certainly this isn't how we should prepare for our future lives. Now is the time to prepare well.
Lega stove ne lega de maroni le diri chegudu khala sai ne khala de maroni le diri chegudu khala chebe ne nye le diri chegudu diri che din che le ji chegudu jisan din na shin da na zu gi jawa chima ro de din na de diri che de je sa we ne din jawa chima ro de ga ne ro da din na de lega nye le khala chegudu so da nye le diri ya ko je sha we ne lega ro we ne de min de tu we da chi Jigilinga Tama Drovena, Kalas, Jay Gama Unity over Mungo. Dinner saying on the Shia Rushine, near Machine, Otama Shiri, the Imji Shiri, the Getting Ever Marta, Dinizada, Shia, and Mahopa Kiwala, the deep Buddhist begin Chasan, Jay, initiate something, Lodi Wood, Yenaya, Simply Yomare, and the teacher had the religious science, and Mahopa the young Buddhist and Lodi Wood. Jasan Dinita. The Jeremy Angela, who's sometimes the famous education more, she said,
So recognizing that this is our situation, that on the one hand, death is certain and it will come swiftly, and on the other hand, in our life, we do make preparations, we do prepare for future things, because it's through planning and preparing that we make our life go easily, that we ensure that we have less problems in the future. So bringing these two understandings together, we need to use our skill and our experience in preparing for future certain events. We need to use the skill and experience to prepare for our next rebirths. This is essential. And because it is so important, right at the start of our text, Lama Tsongkhapa is drawing our attention to this. Now is the time. From now, prepare well.
Yen zang nang zu le xie ge sam bai ge qi bo de zhan be qi ge ma da di zhan be tian da ji dang nang zu ge qi xi tian de le le bu hu lo da ji ge ya ga le ya da mi le tu de jia de la sam da qi xi tian de lo jie ma da lo jie le jie ma de jie wa qi xi ting bu de ne nang sam da le ya ge di xi ge ba yo ma da ji de xi ba na an ji ge wa de ru bo le es han do ge wa de yo de di ba jie ba na xi na de ga ma qi ge es ji de di ba se de zhe mian da Gewase Jubiani, Cabarum, or Denizada, she the Yana, some time, and the Gitish never over yes, and sometime Kitchen or this sometime with Tony, and then she will not, and the details she had to be out. And then Dibadi, as we come to the phone to a Tibetan Christian Kitchen or yes, and then what is so that.
We all accept that we will die. So what we had at the beginning of this verse, that death is certain. And we also accept that our time and manner of death, this is unknown to us. But we have not thought about this deeply. We have not repeatedly trained in the reflection that our death is certain and that the time and manner of our death is unknown to us. And how we can tell that we live in a way that is blind to this reality is that we have many plans for what we'll do later today, over this retreat, over the next month, the next year, the next several years. We have many plans. And not only have we made these plans well, but we have some confidence that we will fulfill them. So that we have on the one side. On the other side, the thoughts about our impending death and our preparations for future lives hardly comes to mind. So we see this great imbalance. And the encouragement here is to redress this imbalance. What we are not being advised to do is not make plans for this life. This is a mistake, because we will hopefully have some time ahead of us. So we do need to make plans, but the balance is completely out. So whilst making plans for this life, we need to reprioritize and ensure that our mind is staying on virtue, because this life's duration is uncertain. And therefore, what is of overriding importance is preparation for future lives, while still taking care of this life. So it's important to understand the balance that we are needing to redress here. We're not going from one extreme, where we currently find ourselves, to the opposite extreme, but rather using our wisdom, using our intelligence, redress the balance. The train of thought in the meditation is reflecting on the certainty of death and various reflections associated with that, and the uncertainty of the time and manner in which our death will come, to bring about a sense of urgency to reprioritize. And then thirdly, that when death comes, it's not that I become non-existent, but I will take rebirth again. And where I take rebirth and within what circumstances is entirely dependent on the karma that I have created. Therefore, I must focus on the accumulation of virtuous karma, extensive and powerful virtuous karma. This is a priority for my life. So this is the meditation in a very condensed format. And how does one then focus on the accumulation of virtue? So one accumulates karma through our physical behavior, our verbal speech, and our mind. So therefore, when we focus on accumulating virtue, we take care of our behavior, our speech, and our way of thinking. This we take care of. And at the very least, we need to ensure that we refrain from all forms of harm, that we do not physically act in a way that brings harm to others. We don't engage in physical conflict, we don't steal from others, and so forth. And we take care of our speech. We don't speak in a harsh manner or divisive manner. And most importantly, we take care of our mind. And we need to do this both in our personal life, but also in our professional life, guided by a simple principle that I must, at the very least, cause no harm, and wherever I can, I must help. Just that. At the very least, I must do no harm, and wherever I can, I must help. So like this, you can engage in a brief meditation on the need to reprioritize our life and focus on the accumulation of virtue and refraining from non-virtue. And to the extent that one does, it will have a transformative impact on your life. Because the way most people live their life is they are striving for their own happiness or the happiness of their group. And this means they will quite easily justify taking advantage of others, deceiving others, and so forth. If you refrain from doing that, and if you refrain well, you'll have a reputation of being trustworthy, of being reliable and dependable. And this will be both in your place of work. People will trust what you have to say, and they will know that when they need, they can turn to you. And this will also be the case in your personal life. So in this way, by taking care of your ethics in this way, you will have close and harmonious relationships with others, both professionally and in your personal life. Others will trust you. They know you will not hurt them. And moreover, not only do you experience benefits in this life, but in this process you're creating causes to have good future rebirths, and you're creating causes that will help you progress towards lasting happiness of liberation and enlightenment. So from this description we can see how it will work. If we take care particularly of our mind and therefore our physical behavior and our verbal communication, it will have a transformative impact on our relationships with others. And we'll be creating causes that will help our spiritual development. This is how it is. We can see it for ourselves. So therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa here, right at the outset, is giving us advice. Look at your life, reprioritize, value what is most important, and thereby you will take care of your body, speech, and mind. The next verse, therefore, when you see or hear of others' death, reflect that this will happen to me. Death is certain, it will come quickly, and it will come without warning.
소소의 상담을 해야지. 근데 그래도 일을 somla 지금 소소의 상담을 나 이미지 다라 디라식스 나라 이미지 시도에 선택. 비디신에 와야 되지. 상담을 진짜现在 시와 통하다. 시위 퇴로 시 퇴로도 소소랑사 你们这上面的说是上课了，Atisha下是个，第四下是个，第二把就是明天的时候，就是你现在的，然后第二样这个，这出来力度啊，说是给结合改为学的呀，这个，你去下来，慢慢的去下，慢记得对老方面去，然后跑学给说是马上是看不到学的，所以说陪你教学是的，对象，当然是结合的头部多是这个。 지금 또 가능한 일이 뭐와 초월의 리그로 돼서 그래서 수수기 개가니 마저는 수수기 가위 초나 마가지 초니 물어다 지상 수수 가위 초디기 미디 마미디 시셔서 수수도 엄마들이 학교에서 로함으로 정하야 나 수수기 마가서디 같이 갑도도 파 시외는 수시 어dan한테 토부도 야기로나 토부도 돼서 가야 돼 내는 거로 봐 现在你什么大完些，那么上的那个西瓦的，通瓦的，特别俺们就特别，俺那些通就说了上当来着。我的那你们这个西土的，那那个西瓦就我们这个地方来嘛的话是，那个那伊拉什么些，然后呢，这是有的我们这里有点些的，现在用前面了，就前面了是个。 给地形嘛，是对产的大的车头要嘛的，还是都是上当路的，还是西安都是上当路的，还是。
The first starts with therefore relating to the preceding verse and the reasons that are established there of why we need to recognize that this life will end quickly, and therefore we need to accumulate virtue. And it continues, when you see or hear of others' death, reflect that this will also happen to me. Through watching the news or speaking with our friends, we do hear about people perhaps who've died in car accidents or in other ways. So when we hear this news, these events happening to others, we need to recognize that this will also happen to us. Our life will end, and we have no idea in what manner it will end. Maybe in a way that is completely unexpected in the ways that make the news. This could well happen to ourselves. All that is missing is that we need to meet the ripening conditions and have specific karmic imprints on our continuum. And then that same result will happen to us. So we need to take these events that we hear about and relate them to ourselves and use them in a skillful manner to add emphasis to or impetus to our need to accumulate virtue. Moreover, for example, when one, fortunately for ourselves, the only way we at the moment observe war is via the news. So when one is observing a conflict, it's normal to take a side. And when the problem though with taking a side and hoping for the success of one side and therefore the loss of the other, is this is all too often accompanied by a very different attitude to the death of people on the one side as opposed to the other. So this you need to guard your mind against. Not to take such an approach where you have a different way of approaching or a different experience of the deaths on the one side as opposed to the other. Rather recognize that for all the individuals involved, their lives have turned around radically and in a way that was completely unexpected to them. But in reality, all that happened is that on their individual continuums were particular causes that met the ripening conditions, and therefore their lives have turned around. And therefore they are having this variety of experiences that people living in a conflict zone are having. This is the reality of the situation. And we need to look at that and relate it to ourselves. That my peaceful life too could turn around, and suddenly I find myself in a very different circumstance to now and use this as impetus. The purpose of these reflections, again, this is important to understand clearly, otherwise one can, through misunderstanding, such reflections can bring one down. That's not the point. The point is to look at reality of the situation that beings find themselves in, and by taking examples of of impermanence and radical change that does continuously befall beings, we use this as an impetus to strive to accumulate virtue, recognizing that for us to have the life that we long for, one of lasting happiness, this will come about in dependence on virtue. So as not to suffer, I need to abandon non-virtue. So when we are observing events in the world and we're relating them to ourselves, the outcome to come to is the determination, I must accumulate virtue. And then in dependence on your other meditations, you expand this. For example, I must accumulate virtue so that I can become a Buddha as quickly as possible, and thereby guide all beings so that they do not suffer in the way that I am observing, so that I can guide them so that they create the causes of virtue, so that they never find themselves in situations such as that. And in my path of spiritual development, the commitment that I'll live my life by is I will not harm others. And wherever I can, I will help. So by reflecting in this way, we accumulate virtue. And that again is the whole purpose of this meditation on the impermanence of our life, is to get us to rebalance, reprioritize, and focus on the accumulation of merit.
Never in the Shiroji maybe meant here Gaya Yorwa. She do Gabla Shiegi, Jensam Sam de Leadu, Sosolia, Chiki, Lu Top Chemboda, Beji, Nuba Chembo Yobene, Shie de Gatuya Mares. Sosuki Benjo, Yachembo Kazi Yobene, Lonjo Kazi Yobene, Digi, Shie de Gatuya Mares. Sosuki Newton or Corda, Sosuki Beji. The
reflection that we're going through from what we see and hear in the world is that our death is certain, it will come quickly, and it will come without warning. And moreover, now moving to the next verse, this life's body, resources, and loved ones. Here we recognize that all that we have in the material world cannot prevent our death from coming. No matter how healthy a body we have, or how impressive a physique we have, that alone cannot stop our death. Likewise, whatever wealth and resources we have, this too cannot prevent our death. No matter how loved we are by others, they too cannot stop our death.
Di ganga mare ganga ngomar de samda tha khe barwa jesa denige samda gyomar pena nga jugi da denige samda je digi dosho dele ani nga julya ganga dele dhuge tablam shenda je samda ma shin bana na di ganga le denige samda je dele sewi ganga tablam shenda je samda gyo tamshin gyo na ganga skaya mar pena shena so jo bena ani Dele 타야게 탑시 하고 신고에는 베니시나 소고들이 시기 말와 그 베니시나 소주 요르데네 시기 마시나 이기 말와 가서 델레 탈비게 탑람 하고 신고와 다 델레 탈비 탑람 하고 마시고는 베니시나 통도 되네 셈데다 강하다 din 마송나 야가로 샤고와 제산 디로제 제사다 아주 시에 삼다 기디신 해봐 요마다 삼배 삼다 해도 데 델레 드비게 탑람 샤나지 삼다 해도 Di ganga di yungo mare, yungayo mare. De samda mashin wena ganga di yungayo ki nyingayo rwa.
In general, when people think about the certainty of death, but the uncertainty of when it will come or the manner in which it will come, this is not a topic people generally want to talk about or think about, because it's not a conversation we tend to have. It brings the mood down somewhat. But because of the approach that's taken here, where we're really thinking about, so what can be done about this situation, this actual situation we're in? The meditation should never lead you to a mental state of feeling helpless or feeling depressed. Rather, it should lead one to recognizing, on the one hand, this is the reality of our situation. So there's no point in ignoring it, because whether we reflect on our death or not, death will come. But on the other hand, by reflecting on it as we are now, and recognizing, actually, I can take care of my future lives, then this can give a confidence, so that we can live this life in the knowledge that it will end, and that is okay. I can accept my death when it comes because I have prepared well. And the preparation is living a life that is virtuous, an ethical life, a life where we accumulate strong, powerful, virtuous minds. Then, however and whenever our death comes, we'll be prepared. So thinking like this then, the mind will not become weak or dispirited or depressed by this, but actually a confidence will come, a confidence that we can take care of our future life, and therefore death is nothing to fear.
The Druidige Shana Soda, do shoe yours and the choosing the Geda, Chick Ben Shana Sorshivada. The Honzugi D. Anikasore, Kodu Juya, Tapshida, Jandor Jendiki, Namyo Jandor Jendi, Namyo Yandiki, Consulate Shana Skyomar, Lamsa, could Jushingurwa, so near Maki by Lamsa Tata Chiturua. Tangana to Jandor Mans the Denation Shanarwa, they draw it in the Yangatimurwa. She's not G. Di Madoniel, Majani, Casamajuniel, and the Jantan de Lagorwa, they need in the Yanga Yorda, Didi de Shore, Dusin Jewels, Jantan de Lagorwa, Lab Savicella, and the Kotnyanga Chichimusama, Holamsa, Tabsin Chingorwa, Chakanga Yomarwa. Dina she was at the Kanga Mashib and the Kanga Church, the Dineza, Tangantula, somewhat on the Lagorwa. She get in the Yunguri, didn't in the Reta, said, the only Suriko, Shena, the Mashib and Jan Labna, the Malabna, Yahimbarwada. Chizan Antula di Lagorwada. She had it in Yungore. Didn't you do a couple of some that didn't answer some Haratan, didn't some Tangures, didn't some down a Gangati Mare, said Dijana, some Latana Lagore. Chizan some Latana Shimsona, she is Tana Yoma, she is Yanayoma, Dagaje.
The purpose of this topic, as with everything that is presented here, is to enable us to train our mind. So if we take illustrations from society, perhaps we think of the animal kingdom. So if a herbivore, a prey, is quite skilled and alert, then even when a predator attacks, they may well escape and get out of that difficult situation. Or another illustration, if we think of someone who's training for a contact sport. So they are being guided by their coach how to move in a skillful manner in dependence on what their opponent does. And in this way, even if their opponent is skillful and aggressive, they may well be able to counter that successfully. So this is what we are doing with this particular meditation, is we training our mind, using the opportunity that we have right now. Whatever it is that remains of this life, this is our opportunity to train our mind well, so that when the situation, the inevitable situation of our own demise comes, we'll be ready and we'll be prepared. And there'll be no need for fear. There'll be no need for apprehension. We'll be easily able to let go of this life and embrace the journey ahead.
Dini jang juge sam dang ta le gore. Dan bene nga juge bene jike juge jilagas tona ma du baina da an jige minye dang bo tumbo yo ba jila jelia ma tumbo ra cha yin da semlia gang a shu ji dan ma tumbo ji cha de gang a shu zhe de semlia gang a te de an tablam sam dang ta ni ba de ma xin bai na an sam ga dang lo ji 강아데 세에 돈달라 지제나 가소레 창동 dimba rasin 제베 두시네 제제기 지경으로와 다 되네게 양 가브리엘야 되네게 배심 강아 시스템의 강아들도 소수의 랑소제기 답람 디간 줘야죠 와다 랑소제 소소랑 시에 되네게 시에게 답람 가로 줘야 친구로와 제가 디소 답람 다다 말아와 하나 직배 마기 위쳐도 파줘도 소야게 소소를 기우면서 당고 기우면 tum부 마샤서 tum부 매바 차에 미디 파줘도 소야리야 이지고로와 제서 안에 소소게 강아세게 답람을 디니 비지던 거때 니기 강아를 둘줘마도 강아 야줘요 말아와 니 삼당한테 답람세야 돼 노고로와다 당한 속에 최고 토는 랍지제도 가를 랍지고 그러서는 다디 소소게 대지 베네 당보 가보니고 tum부쇼 제임바체 제리암 지금 마디베 토네 강아 지금 가가 차베나 남사 삼다나 니베들 바 삼다제다 데니기 지게 지금 인보스가에 미누아 삼베게 다딜레데 데니기 지딘 코발라 게디나 데네 강아 영아 인바르 와스 지다 데네 엔사다 마 지금 델레데 소수기 안지게 류하게 내주었던 비교 주름소야다 데네게 안 개회 자와 주 데네게 제바이나 안 딜레 지 강아세 투야 돼 오도와 삼베 삼다 데네게 삼다지 삼로디 안지게 파 안 녀바지야 돼 채와지게 삼로 셴리야 채와지 녀바지와 삼로디야 파샤 안 랑기 안지게 류다 셈 마기와 차야기 데네게 뇌게 시멘도 데니게 사이트에 바가진 삼로디 파 개위초로 파 사제 내가 주기 당에 냠는지 최제 잠니 조금 디지긴세베 삼로시 추당용 받나 데니게 삼당도 삼당나 니버시 레송다 삼당 니버 디 삼당하디 다지기 람로 야후 차대로 봐 니게 삼당도 데니티기도 소소라이네 삼로다이도 소소레 소소 디지 강아 셈데 파 시시네 뢰뢰 차야다 아니 샤야 네베 삼바 파셔 미딜이야 체베서 네베 삼바 강아제게 삼르디야 메가체 안 소소도 제네 안 가zam질이야 두세 냠냐 야야를 지도 안 파셔딜레 닝제 셈비게 닝지기야다 안 가zam질로 소소 냠냐체도 미샤리야 판버두야다 안 데니게 두투야게 디지게 라신니가레 판버두투야디 삼르니버데 따와 델레드는 용투고로 제가 니가제 낭부 최기 람된디 디지고달라 제가 강아세게 탑람들라 삼는 디니스 땅고래 삼는 디네 따나 소수의 강아세 두그래 시행기 강아세 두그래 지나 되네게 삼나다 마신 와제 안지 소소 강가 대도 전에 되네가 소소소 그 이묵 차야래 안 디게네 지금 지멘사나 되네게 지멘사야래 안디 마시 안지 소소 타메다 랑시야래 현지 현련 여버치야데 되네기 탑람디 노와래 제가 강가 두아마도 강가 세트야요 말레스 제가 되네 삼는 니버 단체 소수기 기위 철파 삼다 호와래 닝보민도 선비 닝보면 되네 닝보민도 선비 델파로 아니지 아주 기회초 삼다도 현잠 이제 검도 제외는 되네 소소에 셈에 기부 샹래 미녀바 아니지 랑 류래 미녀바 랑에 셈레면 셈 기부 류 되고야 아니 니 두스데 샹래 펜버 주투가 아니지 안제만 노바네 샹나기 소소로 미디어하고 샤샤샤다 안디네기 저 이문제에게 디네 규그리스 제가 디네게 삼당고레스 당한줄래 삼당하다 고르바데 제가 디기 두야게디
What we're being encouraged to do here is actually nothing radically different from how all people live their lives. Because at the outset, we're being encouraged to look at our life, look at our actual situation, and then think about how we can make our actual situation better. And this is something all of you do in a wide variety of ways all the time. But what is a little different, though, is once we've recognized the problem, what is a little different is the solutions that are presented. So, for example, whenever one is experiencing a problem of any kind, one thinks of a solution to it. And perhaps in one's life, one is experiencing many problems. So you're really thinking deeply, how can I get out of this situation? Perhaps it's an issue with relationships or with financial circumstances and so forth. So this is normal. People think about these things and they look for solutions. And that too, here, is what we're being encouraged to do. The difference, though, comes in terms of what solutions people apply. Because all too often, if people come to the conclusion that their situation is hopeless, that they are powerless, that there's nothing they can do, that it is beyond them to remedy the situation, then they perhaps turn to alcohol just to try and gain some relief. Or maybe aggression arises very strongly and they think, if only the particular people were out of my life, everything would go better, no matter the consequences. And they assault someone or even kill someone. Or perhaps their sense of hopelessness and powerlessness is so overwhelming that they take their own life. All of these so-called solutions, unfortunately, people do all too often take. This is not what's being proposed here. Rather, the approach that we've been guided in is to look with vivid clarity at our situation and remind ourselves that whatever our situation is, now looking beyond the impermanence of this life, whatever situation we're in that we're finding difficult, to recognize, firstly, that this is nothing special, no matter how unwanted it may be. It's nothing special in that this is what befalls people. I'm not the only person who's experiencing this now, and I'm not the first person to ever experience this. This is part of the human condition. Whatever the problem is, maybe it's conflict in relationships, health, or financial uncertainty, whatever the situation is, this is just part of the human condition. So this leads to a sense of acceptance and prevents one from thinking, why me? What did I do wrong? And then blaming oneself. Looking back like this is a bit pointless. Rather, we just accept this and we let go. So here we're taking our mind, which is otherwise has the potential to be very narrow and tight and grasping at our unwanted situation, and to let go with acceptance. With this letting go and acceptance, we don't leave it there because we still haven't solved our situation, but our mind is a bit more at peace. So we've recognized that this is just how it is for humans. This is the human situation. Or to use the Dharma language, this is the situation for ordinary samsaric beings. We are experiencing the karmic results of the causes that we accumulated previously. Therefore, going forward, I need to ensure that I accumulate only virtue, that I take care of my mind, take control of my mind, and do not accumulate further non-virtue. And in this way I can have confidence. My future will be better. My future will be better. I may not be able to see, but that's okay. I know that by accumulating virtue, wanted results will follow. So this then gives us some sense of confidence. And there, within that then, one can come up with various strategies to develop stronger, wholesome minds within oneself and accumulate more virtue. So that would be the second part. The first was letting go. The second was the determination to accumulate virtue. The third then is to recognize that this unwanted situation I find myself in, that isn't unique to me. There are many people around our world suffering in the same way or worse. And their minds are overwhelmed by suffering. They are in pain. They maybe are thinking of taking their life. They may be already lost in intoxication, lost in addiction. They maybe are even thinking of suicide. So thinking like this, compassion arises, wishing, may they find freedom from the state of helplessness, hopelessness they find themselves in. Because in reality, merely by transforming their mind, not that it's easy, but that is what's required, and their situation no longer would be hopeless. Because they can, by transforming their mind, transform their outlook, and abandon suffering and attain happiness. So in this way, whatever's going on in our life, by approaching with these 3 steps, letting go, and committing to accumulating virtue, and generating compassion for others, we can radically transform our lives. So this then is an illustration on how the Dharma works, from the steps that have already been presented to those that will still come. They all are about training our mind, so that whatever we encounter, we experience it differently. And in this way, we start to experience ever more happiness right now, as we are accumulating the causes for future lives where our situations are even better.
장바에 나가 저기 삼다다의 신고로와 저게 제제 되네자 저기 도시네 제바체 삼다 도시네 되네 신바에나 되네 저기 미다 한 치와 미다 바다세다 진이기 시에기 치와 미다 바세다 삼마가제 그 마다 투네 소소게 기회냠레데 샤라고 슈체레 두고래 제 두고래 지난 치와 미다 바세다 되도 사과래 데레 잡에 아주 땡진 제와 중와세 电信这话中华在什么大的这些大面吧的电把马主吧在什么大的的那个什么的加切些着的那个就给月什么的加切去修切些着的就在的那个我这什么个女把的来的我什么女把呗嘛是修全部什么女把的但什么的女把修全部什么地点的我这个地图查啥 삼로 디딘 주고 삼로 돈에 내두고 리고로 봐 디기디야 삼로 디도 주고 동아야다 강아지에 삼로 디는 용고로 봐 삼로 다나 돈에 제사 디니게 삼로 디 제 친구 제사 디 삼로 디 약부지 이 유튜브나 아니 그 디기 야야 주야 인자다 저 제사 낭비기 냠는 제단기 돈에 디기 주에 탈름도 저 삼로되네 삼로 주왔나 삼로 두스된 땅고래서 삼다나데 랍지 좋는 거로 봐다.
The very meaning of Buddhist practice is training, transforming our way of thinking. To be able to do so, we need to understand how to train our mind. And the method for training our mind is primarily one of analytical meditation. So thinking through situations, and thinking based on ever-growing knowledge that we have. As we gather more knowledge, the more teachings, we have more to base our analysis on, our wisdom and reasoning on. And thereby we can think with ever more clarity about our actual situation. Right at the beginning, to transform how we live this life is to reflect on its impermanence. The combination of understanding the great value that we have as human beings, but the impermanence of this life. When we come, the deeper the realization of these two is within us, the more virtue we will accumulate in this life. The stronger the realization of, as a human being, I have incredible intelligence and I can achieve radical transformation, but I have to apply myself right now and consistently and diligently. The stronger that realization is, the more we apply ourselves to virtue, the less we'll be distracted by things of no value. And then we'll be able to actually make progress in all the later realizations, thinking about impermanence in far more detail, love and compassion, and cultivating the wisdom realizing emptiness. All of that is possible. None of that is beyond any of us. Our human intelligence is remarkable. It has potential beyond what we have ever experienced. All that is holding us back is the foundation of realizations such as the wisdom realizing the impermanence of this life. And as we develop this and then the latter realizations, we can really radically transform our way of thinking. And as this transforming our way of thinking, transforming our mind, is the meaning of Buddhist practice and is the method to attain lasting happiness.
Dine zadang ang jugi jisa nangbi chugi nyamne chele tö sam gom sum se di tö ba che tö bi duen de la sam tö dang bo tö bi duen de la ji nyamne je ta sam da ta de kan de ji ha ko wa che dine gom si da kan je yang ne sam na ji pa ji di 가서 검시 해야 돼. 저걸 봐. 검시가 디시걸 봐. 지나당 안주 검시 되고래. 배는 하나 줄이야. 샤야 채워 지금에 너버 지금에 선배 삼로디 지당 안주길로 요래. 이나당 안주길로 검시 첨부 매와래. 검시가 매도에는 채워 라신기 갑을 제쇼로 받아 소수기 대진 제로래. 지사 검시 첨부 매와. 지사 디 검시 때뭐 수수 야나 검시 첨부 수요도 균에다 되니게 가소래 셴리에 채워지게 삼노도 균에 말려봐 지다 셴리에 펜베 삼노도 야네야로 곰버 쉬우쳐선 라신이 호로 삼노 다 먹어서 라신이 펜베 삼노도 길레하데 연구를 와다 제가 되니게 삼노도 장 양발에 되네 두슬레투 그래서 와다
The Buddhist approach to transforming the mind is the three of hearing, reflecting, and meditating. Hearing is the gathering of knowledge, hearing, reading, studying, the gathering of knowledge, and then reflecting is the thinking about that, coming to understand it deeply. Then meditation is best understood through its synonyms of habituation or familiarization. The process of meditation is developing deep habituation or familiarization with what we've been reflecting on, which is what we had been hearing or studying. So there is this entwined relationship between hearing, reflecting, and meditating. So all of us, we have a wide array of remarkable good qualities within us. For example, love and compassion. But love and compassion do not dominate and guide our minds yet, despite having these imprints. And the reason for that is solely we are not habituated to a loving and compassionate outlook. It doesn't guide us yet in every circumstance. But by becoming more habituated to these ways of thinking, there will spontaneously naturally arise within us in a manner that is uncontrived, without, in other words, without even needing to try. Minds of love and compassion will arise, no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in. So to become that kind of person who's guided by these good qualities, such as love and compassion, wisdom, and so forth, all that's required is repeatedly over a sustained period to hear, reflect, and meditate. And as we become ever more habituated to these virtuous ways of thinking, they are what will guide us in all circumstances.
또 장도르데 시부시 삼로데 장도르 시부 태자자 모바나 지키시고데 대삼로 나 먹어지 고 랑신기 고 가서래 쥐마 많이 봤어야지 온디나지 하시고 따따따따 레투고로 봐 디 멤베랑 되네지래 디원비 현다지기 내가 첨부로지 녀마시라 숨 자도 내가 첨부 주어지고 봐나 디워들 렌제다 때니 간스 자고나 디견야 디진 삼당고 차고도 와 디가서 디 장도르 매바래 현다는 민기 셰바더니마 충충의 장도를 여어서 그 삼당고만 탁탁탁탁 제두고로 와. 그래서 변행한도 인지계신 거 말다 인지계를 파기 주었으면 당보 간데스를 되는라고 해서는 삼로시에 다된 바지라 미 현다지 찍기도 안도시네 남사 어디라기 있어 간데라기 딜라거면서 삼로다 어디 딜라기 있어서 삼로다 되는시네 파라야다 축된다 라트야 되는 삼당고 삼로시당고도 로시 삼당 장도를 찾아서 제일야 곰시다 디나는 뉴버디 여대다 장도샤 뉴버디 여대와서 삼담고 다다다다 제도도 어디 곰시세 좀 많이 봐서 디나신 아주기 기회 잠니제다 자주 셈세하다 또 곰네 야저 곰제데 디나시 곰시 찾아서질라 좀 많이 봐야 돼 당한 넘기게 셰바 나시 람사 직제도야지 내도야 차고 삼당 먹어지 진짜 좀 많이 봐서 디 소수고 곰비게 야네 야도 야네는 근데 내게 사바 장아진 당보 때깔에 삼로다나 야네 야도 장난이 바직 삼다 직마신 안고 다다다다 야고시 제도고라마다 직 자베나 가로 자베네 직 야네야도 맞아서 되네 딱달리 용문다 신금문다 제도도 하던데 디로시도 와 되네 자땡아 지금 삼다디 안에야 땅바는 되는 점만 메인 바스 곰시로 시우태도 점만 바스 차루고 봐 디나싱 아주 계획냠네 제 되는 제고를 안에나 삼땅고를 해야 돼 디송고로 봐다
There will be great benefits if you understand well what is meant by meditation and its great purpose. So to help make this clear, we can take an illustration of language. So you presumably all speak English as a first language, but whatever language that may be, when you hear certain sound, you immediately know the meaning, because the ears just hear sound, but your mind has been well trained to the English language, so you immediately can apply meaning to it. And therefore, you can immediately reply. You don't need to go through much of a thought process. But if you have a second language where you are not fluent, you'll know you have to go through quite a thought process to reply. So for example, myself, my English is quite poor. I really have no great habituation to it. I hear you talking amongst yourselves. I really just hear a lot of sound. Every now and again, I hear a bit of sound that I can apply meaning to, but mostly not. And when someone's speaking directly to me and slowly and carefully, I hear, I then think and sort of understand, and then think a bit more about what I want to say and how to do it. And then I'm trying to find other words because I can't remember the ones I learned before. And then something sort of comes out, and I hope you understand. So what we see here is the difference between how you talk to each other in your native language and how myself, who for me this is very much not a native language, the greater difference is habituation. Habituation. And this is what we're trying to do with meditation. Meditation is successful when it comes about on a stable foundation of hearing or study or listening, together with reflections, with thinking deeply about the meaning, and then becoming habituated to those minds. So for yourselves who are habituated to English, you hear any English word and immediately you know the meaning. Immediately. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to go through a process thinking, what is the situation? What could it possibly mean in this context? You know. Likewise, when one has become habituated to these virtuous minds, whatever situation one's in, they will readily, spontaneously arise. One will not need to remind oneself of the Dharma, because the Dharma pervades your very being, your very way of thinking.
나는 저기 두치는 삼노다체 직 줍투고 바딩아 저기 지가서 삼 세부로 왔다 배는 알아서 삼로 스탑 때 땡아서 두치는 야내는 소수직 다시 조지게 송고로 와 망부에 나도 나라 다서로 조지게 송에 망부에는 미망부님들도 소수게 계시다들 삼당고래 지난 계시의 노교다 되듯이 밀포교 삼든 야고요 말해서 망부에 나도 나라 다서 다 지부 되게 셈나 다스 다 지부 되게 계시아스가 말 계시는 밀네바스가 미수지요 말서 지부로 와 제자다 디다 소소 삼로나려야 밀네바치야다 미고화다나 삼 댄시기로 와데 제자 디데네 야고요 말 제자 데네기 소소기 지부 되게 소소 삼로나려야 미독샤 샹레 네바치야다 샹레 고화다야다 샹레 차와 삼로도 코고디요 코면도 데네 삼나 코고요 바나 디바가 아니 계획초 삼로 땅되면 삼다지 계획초야 강토도 삼다지 그래 제가 디네자 지부되되 네 셈라다 마부에 나도 나라다 두시네 삼담고래 소소냠네 두시고래 세송고 지나도 진행하죠 삼로날 두 삼로다 제바제 직 삼로다 제바도 두시되 디네 니즈디게 하고야 자고로 배낭아 저기 디네야 천직비기 지게 지나sel래 맨수고래 되게 다유 좀 약간 다야 넘주 아니 주강을 다야 추낭로 줘야 추강을 줘 사강을 줘 남나 줘 직튕기 컴퓨터에서 쇼주 수고 지쳐서 삼당 수고로 삼노당 되네지네 되네지서 스페 삼노당 전 수고로 와 제가 미기 남주에 되지 쇼고 싶어하는 미기 남주에 배 맞아 쇼주요레스 제가 되네지 베셔당 투에 남주 쇼레스 비네 dunrudige sweshegyoresene de bure kigore ma de shen jemewa dunre numru swegyo modase ka go swemerwa ane tane nganjugel hadege swegyoresede thoyas kaiminwa de 제가 디네자 데 미기다 델야 류딘 딜레 시우주 델야 삼다에 남주 시우주 비주다 지어래 제가 남주 비주다 남주 비주다디 디네 주투에 지운 거래서 제가 디네 삼다에 디니기 삼다지 지응오버 주에디 돼서 삼로단 주고로 와 내가 아주도 심비셔봐 제가 가서 내가 가라 제베네 삼로나로 코르셰 삼리다네 심비슈긴 돈에 지고래 제가 당한 저기 비주 당한 차사디 셈레 셈디 비주 디기네 셈디 셈레데네 주고래 개와 동아지네 셈레데네 주고래 제가 당한 저 셈레데네 용고래 제가 낭비기 상해 줌된디기 제가 아주 셈두비게 탑람 냠술랭 고래 디네 디기 줍도 동아세도 제가 저 당한 저기 셈 야고소야기 탑람디 최에서는 셈 야고소야기 삼로디 야고소야기 마싱바디게 봐 마싱바스 노트디게 봐 매버서 야유 차다라디 디삼냠 디삼당고 공고를 곰시데 디야네야도 곰직 남이야 마찬가지 디야네야도 공고를 시데 두 곰이도 아니 야때 무차그리에서 야고차그리에서 송고로와
A year or two ago, we looked at a text by Atisha called, I think it's called, perhaps Precious Garland, Bodhisattva's Jewel Rosary. And the final two lines of that were, among others, guard your speech. When alone, guard your mind. So the meaning of the final two lines of this text was that at all times, we need to be mindful, be aware of how we are engaging. And when we are engaging with others, then we must be watchful of what we say. And in general, in society, this is what we do. When we are with others, we will talk to them directly in a way that is appropriate. So we will guard our speech. With this quotation again, amongst others, guard your speech. When alone, guard your mind. All too often, when alone, our mind can just wander from one subject to another in a distracted manner. Through reflecting on the impermanence of this life and seeing the great value of this precious rebirth, bringing these two together, the outcome should be to guard our mind at all times. Because everything comes from the mind. Our physical behavior follows thoughts. Whether we're aware of them or not, we move independent on thought. Likewise with our speech. What we say, how we say, is dependent on our way of thinking, from both our general mood as well as what we are intending to convey. So therefore, we should be mindful at all times of the way we are engaging with others, and in particular of our mind. And by being aware at all times of our mind, we can accumulate extensive virtue. Because through training our mind in the ways that we have just started to cover and will still cover, we can develop ever more habituation to wholesome, virtuous ways of thinking. And that these then will, with greater ease, will be able to pull up in a wider variety of circumstances. So even when we are in challenging circumstances, we will be able to readily access virtuous minds, respond with love, respond with wisdom, respond with compassion, and do so in a manner that is genuine and sincere, because we have been training our mind well. And here, part of this reflection on the impermanence of this life, it comes about based on the reflection on the preciousness of this life. And this involves recognizing, in part, it involves recognizing our remarkable human intelligence. And as human intelligence is all we are aware of, we tend to take it for granted and are actually quite blind to our potential. So if we look at the various fields of knowledge, science and so forth, and all that they know about our material world is quite remarkable. And these are varying expressions of the human intelligence, how independence on what prior generations have known, later generations have developed that further, and so forth. And also when we look in the physical world, perhaps at athletes, and we see just how skilled they are. They didn't come out the womb skilled like that. They trained, they developed their skills. And this is the field in every form of life, whether it's in law and science and so forth. People develop skills and talents. They're developing their way of thinking. They're becoming deeply habituated to particular ways of thinking, so that when they're presented with a certain circumstance, they know how to respond. They know how to respond skillfully. So we're just taking what we have developed ourselves in our own personal life, these various skills, and now we need to apply it to the minds of the Dharma. So by hearing and thinking about, reflecting on what we are hearing, and then meditating on it again and again and again. As we saw here, we need to repeatedly train repeatedly train. So at the beginning of the 4th verse, repeatedly train our mind. This is the process of meditation. So we become habituated to various wholesome ways of thinking. Then in whatever circumstance we find ourselves, we'll respond, guided by minds of the Dharma, love, compassion, wisdom, and so forth.
다데 잠자 다데 ngazu duchine shubare dene zada kyonozumi de samde ngazu chichen jeki chasa ngazu shide gewasa gore 진짜 dene zada kyonozma samdwe jokonda ma chi nye dusile du kabla ne kar dene ge je chone be abo jungso sanbege ni gawa komya de gewa yapo sa sons da gewa yapo sa gore sa yore kyonozumi ni gewa duche gewa sa dene zada 개와치마 땅을 탈바다 탐지긴 벽과 토야다 안 밀려야고 토야게 규사여서 비게다 배하고 중소하선 비소서 가와고면다 너는 못이셔는 직대내기 아니 직 산조고와 마토게 받는 게 제투바지 용어 쇼하선 비게 도시는 삼다데 인게치 뭐저거 소소라는 게 소소를 야고 중시하선 비데 지시하선 비 소소서 나야만 뽑아 개와야 돼 게치 뭐저거 니네자리 도시는 산이데 안된 마무티셔야지.
Just in conclusion then for today, you all decided to come here for these few days, this long weekend, in order to hear about the Dharma and cultivate these minds within yourself. So recognize that and rejoice in your own good fortune in that you yourself have created the causes, one, that you had an interest to come, and two, to come here, and three, now that you are here, to utilizing your time so well. All of you, from when you started early this morning up to now, have accumulated so much virtue. And the accumulation of virtue is the cultivation of virtuous, wholesome ways of thinking. And these are causes that will lead to good rebirth in your future lives. They are causes that will lead to the eventual attainment of liberation and enlightenment. So I encourage you to recognize this in relation to yourself, so that you can be to give yourself inner confidence, inner strength, that just continue what you are doing, and you'll accumulate more virtue, become more habituated to wholesome ways of thinking. And as your habituation grows, you know from other aspects in your life, as your habituation develops, it becomes easier, it moves even faster. So think like this, rejoice in what you've done, rejoice in each other's good fortune, and in this way, develop confidence and inner strength. So thank you. We'll conclude there today and continue from here tomorrow.